Good day, everybody. How's it going today? Well, a little late recording, but I had to move a bunch of stuff in. I was really tired and I slept in. Blame me. Blame me for it all. Still have our nice tree over here. How are you doing today, tree? That's good. Anyways, I speak with the trees. Anyways, so I'm still sort of trying to play catch up to a whole bunch of news stories that occurred while I was away. Thank you very much for not doing anything while I was away, by the way. Actually, you guys did a lot while I was away. But right now it's sort of calm. There's sort of a quietness going on right now. So there's actual stuff that I can actually play catch up on. So let's play catch up with a story that happened about a month ago in the deserts of Southwest United States, Arizona. So we're going to talk about education for a bit. I'm going to educate you about education. So let's talk about the Red for Ed movement. If I can find my crap to click the buttons properly. There we go. Woo! Thank you, mouse. I knew you wouldn't fail me. So anyways, Red for Ed. What is Red for Ed? Red for Ed is a movement that has occurred recently. Because in the United States, primary education is extremely important since we are an industrialized freaking country. We need educated individuals trying to work on the next big thing for our society. Unfortunately, we kind of cut corners and other things and other factors which cause it so that education tends to get a little bit underfunded in this country. Certain things line up perfectly to make it so that teachers kind of get really the raw end of the stick financially in the United States. Things such as paying for college and being responsible for paying for your own education past primary education schools. So what happens there is that teachers tend to be in school for a very, very, very long time. Individuals such as myself, we get, in my particular position for computer science, I have a bachelor's, which means I attended 4 years of college. I graduated from college in 2007. I am still currently paying my student loans. I'm almost done, though. This month will be the last month for me paying my student loans, because I paid a little bit of it early. I've always been one of these kind of freaks who want to get out of debt as fast as possible, so I kind of look for which loan I have that has the most amount of interest being compounded on me, and I try and pay that off as soon as possible. My freakishness aside, most standard people just make the bare payment for the entire time. If I did that, I would have another probably 5 years to go at least, and that means I would be 37. Do the math. Well, if you had good educators, you could do the math of how old this dude is. So that being said, you can imagine doubling that, having twice as much time in school and having to pay that back. You're going to be in your 50s before you get out of that particular kind of debt. And this is on top of your other kind of debt, like a house or a car, or right now the house is the only really major thing of debt that I got, and I could focus fire on it, and it's great. But educators don't really have that option. If I were in education, I would probably still be trying to pay off the debt. I would probably still be trying to get through all that. So it really is the short end of the stick as far as that goes, due to the way in which college works in this country. Another problem that's occurred for educators is the recent subprime mortgage crisis, which has kind of caused property values to sort of dip. The reason that this is a problem is because school taxes are based on property values. So basically property owners, such as either myself as a homeowner or your landlord, like a landlord, if you're a renter, if you have a landlord, it's part of your monthly payment. Like all the tenants of that thing pay into the school tax that the owner of the apartments or whatever pay for. It's based sort of on the property. So if the property value goes down for whatever reason, like people are overinflating its worth and its value, a dip in that value can cause income for property taxes and school taxes to go down. And guess who teachers get paid, right? So that can be a big issue. And so that sort of combination of things has led to governments, and on top of that, like having a Republican sort of government, which is very stringy about spending money that it doesn't have to. Education is extremely important, but not for them, because they're fine. They don't need to be any more educated than they are. They were already educated enough to fool most of the people, so they don't need it. So it's tertiary spending, whatever. Anyways, so Red for Ed is sort of a movement that sort of opposes that. It says that you need to put more funding into your education. Education is extremely important, and et cetera, et cetera. So what does this have to do with furry fandom? Now that I've gone on for about 5 minutes about Red for Ed, what does this have to do with the furry fandom? Well, Red for Ed, as you could tell by the logo that was just up, is mostly based out of Arizona. It's starting to spread to other states, but Arizona is one of the big ones. And they had a big walkout about a month and a half ago. And apparently, one of our own, named Pepper Coyote, in his spare human time, is apparently an educator himself in Arizona, and has been involved with the Red for Ed movement. So, of course, those in power in Arizona, representatives and such like that, have sort of been making their own statements to counter the Red for Ed individuals. One of the big things that happened was one of the Red for Ed movement individuals was on a radio program, and apparently that radio program has ties with the Kremlin. And of course, the Republican body in Arizona who is against Red for Ed protests and stuff like that latched onto that and said, "Look, they're working for the Kremlin," because it's not okay when random teachers in Arizona do it, but if our leaders in Washington D.C. do it, that's just business. That's just fine. We'll be good. There's no collusion. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, that's what the teacher should have just said. It's like, there's no collusion. I don't understand what you're saying. There's no collusion. But, so basically, Representative Townsend was like, well, haha, is Representative Kelly Townsend, which is one of the Arizona's representatives, Republican representatives. The lady goes, aha, see, there's communist ties, there's socialism ties with public educators and socialism. And, one of our own, Pepper Coyote, comes back and says, well, or maybe public education is a socialist institution by its very merits. And then he goes on something about democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is a term that sort of became big in the United States around the Bernie Sanders movement. Bernie Sanders sort of brought the democratic socialism idea into popularity in the United States. And then he goes, education, teachers aren't tricked into being progressive. They're typically pretty progressive. And to be fair, that's pretty accurate. I wouldn't say all teachers are democratic socialists. I would say there are teachers who have a variety of political beliefs. There are capitalistic teachers for sure. Usually they work in finance. They do like finance teaching. But I would say that saying that all teachers are pretty progressive, I would say is a reasonable statement. Because you gotta think about it. Even the Sunday school teacher, you know what I mean? Even the teacher that's just like trying to teach the rules of Jesus, the intent and purpose of them doing that isn't because because they want somebody to better themselves. Usually educators and teachers do what they do to improve the lives of others and help them do better with the tools that they are teaching. That's always their intent. So they're always trying to progress the life of others, as opposed to other individuals who might provide a service to better themselves at the expense of others, such as maybe like a very unscrupulous stockbroker who's just trying to enrich himself with his own stock options using his clients' money, stuff like that. So they certainly teachers want to improve other people's lives or teach others how to help improve themselves. So to say that they're progressive is pretty standard, I would say, as opposed to leaders who want to get themselves elected and don't care what happens to anybody else after they do. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean that's pretty sound to say. And then Pepper Coyote jumping in on this, and of course he's part of the Red for Ed protest, so of course he has a say in the matter. Interesting, he would use his persona Twitter platform in order to make the statement. So interestingly enough, what happened next was Kelly's like, aha! Kelly saw that tweet, and she's like, see, I told you! All these teachers are for socialism and McCarthyism and evil, big boogeyman, blah, 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 blah. Socialism's the big, bad, dirty word for Republicans. But by the way, you guys have your own kind of socialism. It's called nationalist socialism. By the way, and I think, to be fair to Republicans, I think that's why they get scared of socialism, because their brand of socialism is the very evil socialism that will take advantage of well-meaning socialists in order to take over government things, but that's a whole other freaking can of worms. They call them nationalist socialists. So yeah, socialism is neither a left nor a right thing. In my experience, socialism is its own bag of worms that is independent of someone being left-leaning or right-leaning. It's literally like pansexuality or something. I don't know. It's like it's not gay, it's not straight. It's sort of like its own thing. And there's a lot of weird things like that I sort of hold, but that's neither here nor there. The interesting part is when, after the whole thing comes up, it's like Vex comes in and goes, "How does it feel to get elected to office just to get schooled by a furry?" Yeah, look at that furry go. Yeah, kick his ass. If you don't think about it too much, that's sort of what they were going for. But my dumbass and overthinking things, I always go well, first off, two things, Vex. Number one, apparently Pepper Coyote in his free time, actually for a living, is a teacher. So I would hope that Pepper Coyote is good at schooling, because that's sort of his job. Number two, furries are nerds, man. Furries are nerdy nerds, alright? So, a furry logically destroying somebody on something, I would hope, would not be like this big deal, especially somebody who's somebody in the right wings, who just kind of is more folksy than intelligent and can get into office using folksyism rather than intelligence. It's its own form of intelligence, don't get me wrong, but it's not nerdy intelligence. It's not logical intelligence. It's sort of like a charisma sort of intelligence on that side of the aisle. And getting schooled logically by someone on the other side of that isn't really the biggest banner thing to go home. Hey, I'm overthinking it, Vex. But just think about it, Vex. I mean, you're saying furries can't logically destroy people, and when they do, man, it's a big thing. Stop the presses. But the bigger thing here is the follow-up question. as you've probably already read as I've rambled on, is, could you please educate me as to what a furry is? Oh boy, here we go. So, the question has been asked. Now, to bless all your hearts in the furry fandom, when my best response to that question was, "Oh, you believe in free education? Oh, it's like, oh, I thought education was something that should be privatized. Well, if you, Miss Kelly." If you, Miss Townsend, want to learn what the furry fandom's all about, pay me $19.99 and we'll teach you what furry fandom's all about. You just got to pay us, in installments. You know what I mean? You gotta give us some cheddar. You got to give us some cheddar in here. That was the best. I love those kind of responses. But of course, furries, our bleeding hearts, decided to go and tell her what it was, irregardless of her paying us to educate her, because education shouldn't be free, or education shouldn't be a common part of the commons, as it were. The commons is a term dealing with what the government's responsible for. You can Google it. Anyways, so that happened, and then she learned what it was, and then something even weirder went down. That's right. The Republican representative from Arizona decided to get herself a fursona. I can click on it, right? There it is. Turn off. She decided to get herself a fursona. And of course, as a religious lady, as a Republican Christian lady, she decided to go for lion. Who would have thunk it? Narnia called, they want their fursona back. But anyways, that aside, there's another problem here. Basically, she's just looking on the internet for animal people, and then apparently she decided to just copy an image and paste it onto her Twitter feed and say, "This is my fursona now." And there's a problem here. There's a problem right here. Right there. You see this thing here? At the very, very bottom corner? See what that is? That's a watermark. You know what a watermark is? For those who are not in the artsy fartsy fandom, watermarks are a thing that people who draw art do in order to protect their works from being used by other individuals who are not given permission to use their works. So apparently Representative Townsend went to DeviantArt, found a lion picture, posted it on her Twitter feed, and it was a commission for somebody else. Now, Vex and other individuals within the furry fandom might go, us furry fandom people, we're pretty socialist. But when it comes to small-time artists and things like that, they can get a little bit pissy about somebody going in and taking other little artists' stuff. Disney and Pokemon and Nintendo and any of these large mega corporations, you can steal their IPs all you want all day long, they won't care. You do it to a small town artist, and this is going to be a problem. So you understand what I'm saying? They're going to go, I think Boozy Badger even replied to that, saying it's always interesting to see when a intellectual rights, very stringent capitalist sort of individual steals somebody else's work and posts it as if it were part of the commons. Look it up. It's like, this is not part of the commons. This is somebody's work you're taking and co-opting as your own. She did sort of realize her error of her ways, and it was, as it was quickly educated to her what she did wrong. School education in the real world kind of sucks, right? It'd be great if people could teach something like that in like an educational institution in which you don't embarrass yourself by learning things the hard way in public spaces. Just saying. Anyways, that being said, Apparently, now that she had an interest in her persona, one of the last thing that sort of happened with this whole thing is that one furry artist, out of the goodness of their heart, decided, I'm going to draw her work. I'm going to make her persona, and I'm going to make a piece of artwork based on it. So here is the tweet by the individual artist who performed that service. Now, it is very important to note that, yes, they did that for free for her, but it does not mean it was free. And unfortunately, I have to extenuate this and put this in big highlighting because furry Twitter, being what it is, took this action out of context and basically smeared this artist over their behavior here. So as you can see, the artist says, I usually charge for stuff like this, but here is a free picture of your persona. Please, but let me quote this as, but just remember that teachers and educational are educational. Here we go. Just remember, teachers are educational foundation for America's youth, and they deserve better pay for their hard work. Exactly. Because if we paid our educators better, because every educator out there just went, you gotta stick an an in there. You're missing an and, man, in front of our unessential foundation of America's youth. You missed an and there. Yeah, take a big red marker, circle it. Aha! Frickin' teachers, man, what did I stick up for you? Frickin' marking my frickin' tweets with red marker. Meh. Anyways, that the typographical error aside, the individual here made it out of the goodness of their heart, used their talent in order to send a message to the individual using an act of kindness. Now, let's understand something here. There are a lot of very left-leaning furries who get really upset acknowledging the fact that the right wing exists. Because there are certain people, particularly the new right wing that Donald Trump has sort of correlated, this sort of authoritarian stint of the right wing. And they are the new right, right? The alt-right is the new right, particularly when they won the presidency. So, the smaller town Republicans who are kind of dealing with the fallout of their big overlord being a really strifing big old arse, have to deal with this kind of crap. And they are going to be, and they make bad decisions too. She's made bad decisions about abortions and education that the left really doesn't agree with. So having a furry draw a picture of her for free really got under the skin of particular individuals within the fandom. Particularly, do not draw jerks free art. Do not draw tyrants like this free art and blah, blah, blah. The issue is that it wasn't free. And this is where I have an issue with it. It's literally like that. But the best example I can give is it's literally the tactics that are used by religious organizations. It's like, here's this free magnet. We've included this free magnet from the Church of La-di-da. The La-di-da church down the street. And you can put this magnet on your thing. We just ask, it's yours for free. We're just going to write you this large letter about Jesus. Or here's a free prayer mat that's printed on a little piece of 8x11 paper. And you can have it for free. But here, listen to us. Let us talk about rambling about Jesus for a little bit, all right? So it's similar here. The art is the art, and she got free art. But the cost of the art was to have her be told, it's like, by somebody who disagrees with her political positions about education, that you should compensate those who work in education a little bit better and do a better job at doing that. And by the way, here's some art. Whether or not it was wasted effort and she doesn't decide to, and that message just fell onto deaf ears and like she just tosses it out, it was a risk. similar to the frickin' free stuff that a church might throw you, and say, "Hey, look, here's this free stuff. I like Jesus, and I hope you like Jesus too." And it's like, well, I don't really care for Jesus, but thank you for the free magnet anyway. You know what I mean? So it's sort of in that realm. Their heart's in the right place. I wouldn't crap on the artist for what they did. A lot of people in the a sizable group in the furry Twitter crapped on this artist for what they had done, and I think that's not conductive of anything. So I would critique that action for sure. That being said, that's about it for that large story. It went kind of viral. It went kind of crazy. Mainstream, our Arizona press sort of covered it a little bit. There's some links in the description below of some sources of this particular news story. And so, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned Pepper Coyote. Pepper Coyote is pretty well known in the fandom. They are also a furry musician. Second time a furry musician's been in the frickin' furry news. Furry musicians are just frickin' tearing it up as far as like news goes. We had the one on Jeopardy that was just like a little bit. Now we have this one dealing with this weird political fallout in things. But one additional thing I do have to add before I close out of this particular topic, and that is, it's fascinating to me, like how things have changed in just a decade. If you told me in 2007, when I was like in college and just graduating college, as I noted, that furry fandom, like as far as a political thing, would have been like literally a lot of people would note that her behavior was her trying to humanize herself to the furries. It's ironic that she would use a persona to humanize herself to the furries. But that's sort of how it goes. A lot of furries, it's like, well, it's like, oh, who are you? It's like, what's your persona? Personas, in the furry fandom are used to kind of, things like, yeah, we're one of you, kind of a thing. And a lot of furries noted that this sort of tactic of hers was sort of a ploy to try and make herself, quote unquote, hip with the kids with the furry kids and stuff like that. And funnily enough, her stint wasn't just around this art thing and the persona thing. Like, she eventually had conversations with some actual right-wing furries, such as like Tech-Roo and others like that. She even like played along with the whole like what's in Tech-Roo's pouch as a kangaroo. I had no other kangaroos in the fandom. Tech-Roo is sort of like this Wyoming furry who's very like small government conservative, like Wyoming, right? So, and they had an interaction with Representative Kelly during the whole furry fiasco thing, which was kind of interesting because, it sort of did. She did pick up on it quite quickly, watching her go into that particular environment, which is kind of cool. Like, people can learn even after school, and it's important that we keep educating ourselves about one another and such like that. That's sort of a tangent. Going back on the topic, though, it seems extremely bizarre to me that somebody in power, that somebody who has no business and no, like furry seems like sort of a kitsch riffraff sort of a sort of a cultish sort of like not cultish but like a punkish sort of thing. So to have somebody in power actually like pretend to give a dang, or even like not trying to push us off with like a 99.5-foot pole. Because back in the mid-2000s, if furry got involved anywhere close to any representative, the representative would like just block their entire Twitter feed and go, "I don't hear you, I don't hear you." Because you could see things like back then when, politics and furries sort of got a little too close for comfort. And like the politicians like quarantine themselves. It's fascinating to me to see that shift in such a way where all of a sudden, like, a representative is trying to exploit the fandom in order to try and seem normalized to the fandom. It's weird. It's weird, the world we live in now. It's changed so much. But anyways, that's all about I got to cover for this one. It's been quite a bit of time on it, but it was quite an interesting one. So I'm starting to catch up a little bit. Hopefully, we'll catch up with some of the other old news next week, and if something major happens over the next week, we'll cover that. So I'm going to get the hop out of here. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Are you an older furry? How have you seen the world of politics change around the furry fandom? How has the real world politicians and stuff like that? How has your ability to be a furry in sort of public changed over the past few years? Is it getting better? Or is it just like, it's getting better, but it's still got its qualms and stuff like that? But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I will see you again here next week. Thank you very much.